It was a terrible, dismal Disney earnings report. CEO Robert Iger stepped in it on multiple occasions on multiple topics. The big takeaway is that Disney wants to be seen as a victim when it comes to the state of Florida and their situation, in which they believe they took a virtuous political stance and now they're being retaliated against. Regardless, it does not stop the market from responding, and the market responded the day after the earnings report strongly, forcefully, coming out as a negative against Disney. They are losing confidence in the mouse. And today, we're also going to look at a situation that reveals that Disney is not, in fact, the victim. Disney is picking and choosing when they wish to be virtuous and in which they wish to be villainous. Stick around. And folks, we are here to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve. Disney is providing tons of content, and not in a good way, but perhaps that will change in the future. Maybe it'll be 6 months, maybe it'll be a year, maybe it will be 5 years, but I look forward to a time when I can cover once more Disney in a positive light. And sure, there will be sporadic positive pieces of news that come across. I gave Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 an 8 out of 10, and there have been some other good things out there as well. Of course, Avatar: The Way of Water was a positive for Disney, but as of late, the company is struggling mightily. Joining me to help parse through the information and give it to you as honestly and as accurately as we possibly can is VashSky of Orange Grove 55, a fantastic network that I recommend to all of you out there who are interested in Disney park blogging. Vash, welcome back.
Hey, happy to be back. The Walt Disney Company isn't super happy right now, especially.
Been a rough few days.
been a rough couple of days, that's for sure. And we'll go into all the financials in a moment there as to why they might not be so happy.
And you know, these financial issues come from decisions, and the decisions have not made a lot of sense. We've been saying that for a long time. We've taken some criticism from folks who think that we're just doing this to be negative about Disney, that perhaps that's how we find our clicks. And I just don't think that's actually true. We're trying to relay as honestly as we can what's happening. We are now seeing what we have said, our mistakes, come to fruition for Disney. And we're starting to see Disney drop in their value. And by the way, before we get started, let me say this.
Sure.
We have to cover the financial aspect of this. It's part of the news. But we are not financial advisors in any way, nor do we wish for that to be construed as part of what this video is. Please do not take any part of this video as financial advice. If you would like financial advice, seek out a local financial advisor that you trust who is certified and who has all of their credentials in place. Now, Vash, Disney had a rough earnings report. Disney Plus numbers are down. Are you ready to dive into the information from Yahoo Finance and then go to something I think very few people are aware of about the Walt Disney Company in terms of something that is even, shall we say, sinister that has just popped up?
Absolutely. I'm as ready as I can ever be.
That's right. And Vash, also, let's say this.
Yes.
I don't want to delay it too much, but let's say, you know, there are things about the Walt Disney Company that I love. I'll give you one quick example, because people think, you know, that we're being just overly negative, that we're being too pessimistic, and that we're haters. I recall a time that I was at the Walt Disney World Resort, Magic Kingdom specifically, watching one of the nighttime parades. And I remember someone with special needs viewing them from a distance and watching the characters go by and take special time and give special attention to that individual, and the pure joy that that person was having, it really touched me. And I mean, I know that we all, you know, we make fun of the pixie dusters, and Disney does use the phrase, you know, the term magic too much, but that was a magical moment, watching the goodness and the kindness being relayed to that person. And there are things about this company that are wonderful. As of late, they have stumbled. So let's get into this. Go ahead.
Well, it's put the people who make that magic, their jobs in jeopardy when
Oh, that's a fantastic
management makes decisions like this, like they have been making over, the past couple of years. And I want to be clear too. Disney's performance is not limited to just them. I think there really are kind of endemic trends that are going on in the marketplace right now, and a lot of the studios and themed entertainment industries are being hurt right now. But Disney hasn't made, I guess, it any easier on themselves with the decisions that they've made. They could have weathered this storm and had some really unique brand loyalty at a time like this, but they've compounded the situation on themselves.
Part of the problem that Disney has is that if we look at the subscriber numbers for other streaming services, they do not appear like the graph that people are seeing on their screens right now. There has been a hard shift downward for Disney Plus subscribers. That's bizarre. I mean, the market wasn't expecting that. Disney is now missing its projections, its milestones. Netflix seems now guaranteed to be the leader in streaming for the foreseeable future. That was never the absolute case up until just now. I mean, Disney Plus came out with the intention of competing with Netflix. That's no longer on the table.
Yeah.
But let's get into this. Disney tumbles after posting decline in streaming subscribers. This by Thomas Buckley of Yahoo Finance. You can see the chart here, folks. Robert Iger was supposed to come in and save the day. There seems to be, although it's hard to believe, a correlation between Robert Iger coming back to Disney and subscribers leaving the service. Make of that what you will. I don't know if it's a direct correlation, but it's certainly there, whatever it is. This out of Bloomberg, hosted on Yahoo Finance. Walt Disney Company shares fell the most in 6 months after the company posted a drop in subscribers to its namesake streaming service and predicted a wider loss in that business this quarter. By the way, folks, it gets worse. The Walt Disney Company also, this is not in the article, but they also said that Q3 likely doesn't get better, and they are hopeful that Q4 gets better, but they didn't give a reason why. That does not inspire confidence. The loss from streaming will increase by $100 million this period because of shifting marketing costs. CFO Christine Ursula McCarthy said Wednesday on a conference call with analysts. The stock dropped 8.6% to $92.44 in New York Thursday morning. My understanding is that after this article released, it dropped more. Disney's direct-to-consumer segment, which includes the flagship Disney Plus streaming service, suffered a loss of $659 million in the just-ended fiscal second quarter. The company said that was significantly lower than the $850.3 million that analysts projected and less than half what it was just 2 quarters ago. But a wider loss this period, which McCarthy characterized as a little blip, rose back some of the progress Disney has made towards achieving profitability in its streaming business. The company has simultaneously seen a sharp decline in its traditional TV business, which includes ABC and ESPN. This earnings call was terrible. I mean, we could just go through the list of things that are down. Disney Plus subscribers are down. Linear TV is down. Box office is down. We could keep going and going. The only thing that seems to keep this company afloat are the theme parks. And even the Walt Disney World Resort in this latest report showed some weakness that should give everybody trepidation. Perhaps the crown jewel is having some issues. We'll wrap this article up. To improve the financial performance of its streaming business, the company introduced a new ad-supported tier for Disney Plus in December and raised the price of the ad-free version by 38% to $11 a month. All right. We also see here that analysts had expected Disney to rise to 163 million subscribers. Instead, it fell to 157.8. So, they're going to combine Hulu with Disney Plus in large part because Hulu is outperforming Disney Plus, if you can believe it. So they need to stop that. That's a bit embarrassing. Vash, I'm going to turn it over to you. What is causing this drastic dip for Disney? If you think about it, Vash, that line should basically never go down because Disney has about half the subscribers of Netflix. It's nowhere close to saturated. Netflix added 7 million subscribers last quarter. Disney lost 300,000. What's going on?
Yeah, pretty bad news there. It's interesting because their other DTC divisions like ESPN and Hulu actually rose, which was interesting. But there. Yeah, I mean that that 4 million subscriber hit from Disney Plus is not going to be easy. That's not going to be easily incurred. And what people have to understand about that too is not only will that line not go down, but that should be ever growing right there. So you're not just losing 4 million subscribers, you're losing the amount that you should have gained as well. So,
and they opened in
Yeah.
new markets. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
Mhm.
unbelievable that it dropped while they opened new markets around the world.
Correct, and I guess Iger, I guess, was assured that hey, it didn't drop. It dropped to a degree that was within margin, because what they are saying as to the reason why this drop off occurred was because of this massive increase that took place in December. Now, I'll be fair to Iger; he came in late November. This happens before he even gets to sit out in the chair officially, and that price hike begins, which he was critical of. But they're saying, oh, we're gonna raise prices more, at least on the premium tier of Disney Plus, in order to drive more people to the ad tier level of that service, in order to maximize on ARPU generated from ad revenue, which is an interesting tactic. But at the same time, they're going to weaken the product by taking content off of Disney Plus, so much so that they're going to incur what Kirsten Wastelands McCarthy, that's what we call her on OG55 actually.
Nobody likes the CFO of Disney. For the audience out there who has no idea who this woman is,
yeah,
Christine McCarthy, the CFO of Disney, we could go through for about 10 minutes the horrible, awful things she has said. We're not going to do it in this video, but suffice to say, she's a dandy. She's a dandy of a person.
Do you remember that CEO talk? Yeah, we you don't hear much of that going on anymore. But what she was saying was they're taking off so much content off of Disney Plus that they're going to incur a $1.5 to $1.8 billion impairment fee. That's the level of assets they are going to be removing from Disney Plus as it goes on. They're going to continue to raise the price, at least in some aspect. And that's supposed to be better for the consumer. And, they're supposed to raise ARPU to an extent that it'll be profitable. And while they did say this is going to be peak losses in terms of their $400 million loss that they incurred this quarter, they did say, Christine did say that expect more losses in Q3 and then Q4. Okay, maybe we start coming out of this. I mean, this is not good, and you have to understand here, folks. When they went hard into Disney Plus and streaming, right? They robbed Peter to pay Paul. So Peter, right, was a highly successful linear broadcasting service, right?
And don't forget about the secondary DVDs and Blu-rays that they killed. Yep,
physical media. You can add that onto the list right there. So Peter was a standout student, very well placed to make a lot of money for the Walt Disney Company. Well, they gave Paul a baseball bat, and he kneecapped Peter right there and disabled him so that he can't actually work. And then Paul is a deadbeat after that. That's kind of what happened here, because when everybody went on streaming, and to be fair, the whole industry did, not just Disney, but when the industry did and Disney followed suit by, one, buying 20th Century Fox in order to get their library, and then two, investing $30 billion like a year in content creation, a lot of that for Disney Plus itself. When they did that, they cannibalized and very much hurt their linear broadcasting services that they had. Cut the cord thing was happening, but now the linear is really kind of a drag on the company. I believe, did we experience $1 billion in losses? I believe 800 million domestically and 160 million internationally, if I recall that.
That is correct. And
okay.
Vash, let me say this too. The current CEO is the one who came up with all of this, right? And not every company out there decided to go this way into streaming. You can take a look at a company like Sony. Sony decided they're not going to do their own streaming platform. They contract out their stuff, and it makes a ton of money for them on these other platforms.
Yeah,
Disney decided that they, under Iger, in the prior term when he was the CEO, that they were going to turn Disney Plus into essentially the be-all, end-all of the company. They assassinated their linear and broadcast television products. They essentially killed off their hugely financially viable DVD, Blu-ray, secondary movie business.
Empowered by the Vault, which was a Chapek thing. Let's
Absolutely.
not forget that.
And then in doing so, they put all of their eggs basically into this basket along with the
Yeah.
parks.
Yeah.
Well, Iger's the guy who put it there. Now look at this chart again. Iger's also the guy who used the situation in Florida, the political situation, the highly contentious issue that divides the consumers, along partisan lines. He's the one who pushed the company into that against Chapek's wishes. Chapek then later succumbed to those wishes, and Chapek is now out and Iger is back in.
Mm-hmm.
I submit to you that Iger is the facilitator of Disney's current demise. I think that he pushed the company in a particular direction, thinking that he would get rid of the CEO, and not considering that once he returned, that he would have to clean up a huge mess. I think he thought that it would clear out on its own, let's say, or that it would not be quite so long-lived.
I think there is an argument to be made that he was causing chaos behind the scenes that the Walt Disney Company is facing now, especially when it comes to Florida. You have to remember that the Florida situation, that was initiated by Iger himself with a tweet, quote tweeting, I believe, the 46th president of the United States actually at that time, which put a lot of pressure on Chapek to do something there. But not only that, but yeah, I mean, you very well could make the argument that Iger really kind of set that into motion right there with 20th Century Fox purchase, with the launch of Disney Plus and so forth, and then bailing right before the world turns upside down under very questionable circumstances and timings. But I'll Chapek did kind of lean into it a little bit because that's where the industry was going. That's what Wall Street was I think
Chapek.
That's what Wall Street wanted.
Yeah, I think Chapek had a different view, but then the pressure built up to such degree that he tucked tail and ran towards that. And now looking back, whether or not he was on the right side of history, who knows? That's a subjective thing. We'll see what the world thinks about it in 50 years. But whatever the case may be, strategically, in terms of keeping his career, clearly did not work. He's gone, and Iger's back. Yeah.
And they under Iger, continued by Chapek to a certain extent, and yes, the strategies were a little bit different, but the ultimate strategy was, we're going to be one of the final two, and we're going to go at Netflix, and if we can't beat them at their own game, we're at least going to compete with them at their own game. And you have billions of dollars of venture capital that Netflix just burns through every single year for this stuff. There was no way that Disney was going to compete with that. And to try and compete with them on the scale and level of investment that they did, it has really kind of hurt the company in a profound way. I mean, I heard some, even some pixie dusters out there were going, "Ooh, this is kind of concerning right here. Are we going to be able to get out of this?" Now, I do think that their portfolio is diverse enough in order to kind of stem some tide here for a little bit, but we got to start making money here because the studio's down. We don't
box office year to year is down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. We don't. That stuff's all down. The parks, yeah, I mean, they're doing okay, but even Christine Waysons McCarthy, she was saying, "Hey, look, listen, for the next quarter, guys, don't expect huge numbers or huge gains. You can expect a little bit of softening in this area because, well, the 50th was so
that was so bad. Successful. Our group, okay, so I don't know how you guys reacted, but our group, we were on Valiant Renegades channel doing the live stream coverage of that. Yeah. When she said that, we broke out in laughter. Honestly,
I was rolling on the floor. So we had similar reactions. I think to that because I mean, just ridiculous nonsense that was being parodied.
Anybody who knows anything about the parks knows that the 50th was essentially just an absolute disaster, and it did not draw in crowds.
It was.
All right.
It was.
So let's go to this then. Let's get to the spicy part of this, and it's important because we need to put some issues to bed here.
Please.
Disney seems to want to position themselves as being the company that is virtuous, taking the right stances, being on the right side of history. We've been chatting about that, and that they're being punished now as a result of that. Disney seems to want to position themselves as having done everything they can to be inclusive and kind and diverse, and gosh darn it, People just don't like them for that, but they're going to stay the course, and eventually society will catch on. Well, I'm here to tell you that I just don't buy that. And I love parts of the Disney company. I love parts of the Disney legacy, most of the Disney legacy, and it's been a great force for good for the majority of the time that it's existed.
Yeah.
But in terms of the modern era and how this company is run, it seems to me that they pick and choose, and that there's quite a bit that's sinister behind the scenes at Disney, and I mean that. Let's take a look at this article out of Just the News. This by Ben Whedon. By the way, this was very difficult to find. I'm just going to tell everybody out there, we knew this had happened. We couldn't find articles covering it. It took a lot of work to even find anything on this.
Wow.
But let's take a look. This from May 11th, yesterday in the evening. GOP Representative Banks excoriates Disney after company cancels meeting with Uyghur advocates. Note, we're going to try our best to strip the politics out of this because this is not a political channel. However, when entertainment intersects with politics, we must cover it to some degree. I'm still going to do my best to strip out any partisanship here and stick to just the facts of what Disney has done. The Uyghurs are a Muslim majority Turkic group who live in China. Let's read on. Indiana Republican Representative Jim Banks on Thursday slammed the Walt Disney Company for canceling plans to meet with a group of Uyghur advocates. In other words, Disney was going to meet with them and chose not to. Let me set the context now for everybody out there. Disney has had a very cozy relationship as of late with the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is involved in some rather unpleasant things, and that is to undersell this dramatically. Some rather unpleasant things with this particular group of people, the Uyghurs. To say what they are going through would probably get us in trouble on YouTube. To give you an idea of how bad it is. It's bad. It's bad with a capital B. And Disney, having been cozy with the Chinese Communist Party, when they were filming Mulan in China, they filmed near a place that had Uyghurs there who didn't want to be there and who were suffering greatly. Again, we won't even say what that place is for fear we would get in trouble. But Disney thanked the Chinese government there that ran that not so happy little camp. And so Disney's had some real issues here. Disney apparently was going to meet with advocates trying to defend these people who are being eradicated from the earth. Here's what happened. Disney executives pulled out of an off-the-record meeting with Uyghur victims. I'm skipping a word, but you can read it. He said in a press release. It couldn't have been to protect Disney's public image or bottom line, so maybe the executives were just worried about a good night's sleep. Whatever the reason, Disney publicly praised CCP agencies committing you-know-what, and then privately scorned their victims. It's time for Disney to own up to its mistakes and make amends, he continued. It goes on to talk about what we've just discussed. Here's the issue I have with this. The problem I have is that Disney seems to want to market The Little Mermaid in such a way as to present themselves as virtuous, and those who would, shall we say, find the movie not to be up to par are going to be called all kinds of horrible names. Disney has presented themselves with their reimagined tomorrow content that is highly divisive as being the virtuous position they must take. They must take this position, despite the fact that it divides their consumers and causes parents to question Disney's motives. And then, of course, we've got the situation in Florida. But when it comes to something that's truly evil, and I mean that, everybody, evil. This is evil, what is happening to these people. We can't describe it. We can't describe it to you. It's evil. Disney won't even listen to these people. There's a problem there. And what I would submit to people is that, like Main Street USA, that Disney is all facade, except with Main Street USA, there's actually some kind of meaning there. The current leadership at Disney puts on a very good front, but behind that very good front are people that are not so good at all. And I think that the market and the consumers and society at large has caught on to what Disney is up to. And I think that's why Disney now is struggling to hold on to subscribers. I think it's time to start beginning to talk about this Disney boycott that is moving through society. Vash, what do you make of all this?
I don't think it's as necessarily a boycott as much as it is what Chapek coined as brand withdrawal.
I'll go with that. I'll go with that. Whatever that sentiment is that's causing people in mass to no longer feel a desire to stick with Disney.
And that's the thing. I mean, Disney was a lifestyle brand. You know, people talk about, well, you know, people, there are hated brands in the industry, but they're very successful. It's like, okay, well, take one of those hated brands. Let's take Comcast, for example, right? Do you see people with Comcast posters behind them talking about, you know, any of this
You're
stuff?
Exactly right.
Right.
Yes, Disney created an entire lifestyle. Some even would call it some sort of quasi-religious thing, you know, for the people who take it way too far. But yeah, you're exactly right.
So when I mean, the polling on Disney used to be, man, 80s, 90s. It kind of dipped down the 70s a little bit, and then after what happened with the whole Florida thing, it dipped down to the 50s.
Well, Axios had them polled at 47% favorability, which is just awful.
Oh, it's terrible. So think about it. Do you really want to wear that brand on your sleeve if the general sentiment around that brand has changed in the profound way that it has, if it's being associated with things that maybe, you know, to your personal beliefs are antithetical to them? You know, you really kind of have to think about that a little bit. And I will say, even in this last earnings report, their consumer products division, as part of the Disney Parks Experiences and Products division, was down.
Which isn't that funny that is now rolled into the parks division? It's so fun how they done all this.
Well, it's that was Chapek, so
well, I mean,
he was a consumer products guy. Well, I'll just incorporate this as part of my new.
It's still quite interesting how they've done all that. Now, what I find sad about this, Vash, is that all the company has to do, all the leadership of the company has to do, is say, you know what, we make kids content, and we're going to stay out of all this stuff that is divisive. We're going to stay out of the stuff that's political. We don't touch that. We make kids content. We host Bluey.
I know. Well, and that's the unfortunate thing, because this is kind of getting to the geopolitical realm. But Bob Iger, very early on, even before he was even CEO, even when he was working under Michael Eisner, one of his things that he championed throughout the company was we had to establish a deeper relationship with China. He used Shanghai Disneyland in order to facilitate that. And even now, because Chapek was trying to separate from China, he really was. There was an earnings call after Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness came out, and he was evangelizing about the box office of that, or at least the opening weekend of, and he was saying, look, this is what we did even without China. So if there's a future without China, we're brave enough to pursue it. That's what he said.
My sources had told me that they were looking at a plan to sever the ties with the parks over there somehow, divest their interest, because, you know, if one country invades another country, we're just playing theoreticals right now, it can be really bad for Disney. Disney, you know, how does Disney respond then? And my understanding is that all of those plans that had been put in place, if, you know, something really unlikable occurs in the world, that all those plans have kind of been put away. They've been put away, and a little dust on them now that Iger's back in charge.
And
there's not a plan B. How's that?
Yeah, exactly, right. And here's what I think what happened, and this relates to the story as well. I think what happened here is that when Iger took back the seat, that all changed. There are articles in the trades actually saying, with Iger back, he can facilitate the restoration of relations between Hollywood and entertainment and China. There are articles talking about that right now, and the expectation is
whistling
that
past the graveyard.
What was that? I'm sorry, bro.
Whistling past the graveyard. In other words, they are they don't recognize that China is only using our box office to further China's interest.
Correct. And I think Chapek understood that to a better degree than maybe some of the other people in entertainment did at that time. And Iger still has the wool pull over his eyes, I think. And I think the reason why because the article says they initially agreed to this and then pulled out, I think Iger was the difference maker right there. I think he knew that if Disney got involved in this specific issue, which the government in China holds to be, you know, a faux pas, let's say, when it comes to American dealings, right? I think that would have been curtains for future deals going on with China.
They would freeze them out of the box office over there for 3 or 4 more years. So,
Yeah.
but
And
that's what will cause Disney to roll over. And I think here's the problem for Disney domestically.
sure.
It's a big problem. I
Yeah.
think it is now perceived that Disney views the Communist Chinese Party as less of an enemy than the governor of Florida. And maybe that's wrong, but if you look at the way Disney treats those two entities,
Hmm.
Disney does not get along with one of the states, one of the biggest states in our country, the Sunshine State, the vacation capital of the world. And they cozy up and do exactly what China asks them to do. I mean, so what else can you come away with on that? And I think that eventually, when you have that level of ineptitude,
Mm.
that level of inconsistency in your morals, even in corporations, I think it begins to impact your value as a company.
It's all about brand perception. And I think that brand perception is damaged, and I think that's why we are experiencing this brand withdrawal from Disney. These this pullback from the consumer base because people think of it differently. I think that really has kind of permeated throughout the culture, and it's interesting that you talk about them foregoing principles. We've seen this happen before. For example, John Boyega on the poster of The Force Awakens, for
that was
example,
sort of the beginning of this.
Yeah. Yep. And that was 2015 when Force Awakens was marketed in China. Well, John Boyega was either very, very small in that poster or he wasn't represented at all. We saw Black Panther when that made the rounds in China and how they, covered up the lead actor's face there, Chadwick Boseman, from being shown on the posters. It's very interesting, the stances that the company takes in America, and will, fight with the governor of Florida there, Ron DeSantis, over, and yet they do things a little bit differently when it comes to some of these other markets, and it's unfortunate to see that.
I long for the days of Disney past. I hope that they will get back to being a beacon of virtue and that they will maintain integrity and consistency in whatever positions they take. It's not much fun to watch a company that shifts and moves depending on who it is they're negotiating with.
But,
Vash, go ahead.
Well, before we leave, just real fast, I wanted to ask you a question, really, really fast, Pro, about
Go for it.
Hulu, because there was a lot to be made about Hulu in this last earnings call, and whether or not they were going to actually maintain that asset. Yeah, because you'll know, and I'm sure your viewers know, they own a 66% stake in Hulu thanks to the 20th Century Fox deal. In 2024, there's a mandated negotiation in which either Disney needs to buy out,
which we assume will
Comcast's
carry
share.
a price tag of between $9 and $13 billion, depending on negotiations.
Correct. Now, Iger was initially saying that he was going to sell that share. Well,
he left the door open.
He left the door open, right? But
right.
Yeah, he was he's on the fence.
Right. He was more negative than positive in his tone.
Do you think that they will acquire that from Comcast? Because we're talking $13 billion there.
Yeah, and not at a time when the company can necessarily afford it easily.
Correct.
This is not the same Disney that bought Fox. But I think that yes, whatever Iger may have said about they're not in the position of purchasing more assets. Well, apparently he's addicted to asset purchases, because I don't think he would have come out and said this one umbrella, this one app system, which they are already investing in the infrastructure and preparing to roll out.
Which is what JPEG wanted to do, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any way to do that without owning Hulu outright. Perhaps you could come up with some sort of convoluted agreement that would allow Comcast to maintain control, but yet they're somehow now in control of part of Disney's one umbrella system. That seems hard for me to believe, because that gets right to the core of what Disney has set up to be their main business line, that being Disney Plus streaming. Yeah. So I don't know that they would want another company to have that close of access. I think absolutely. Now, when we're talking about the money that they're going to spend to pick it up, there are some ways to negotiate this down a little bit, but those also get tricky. And you might also see Disney try to get the opportunity through all of this to use their Marvel characters in their parks east of the Mississippi, which is another big deal. But all of it's messy, and I think that's why Iger didn't want to discuss it yet, is because those negotiations clearly are not yet finalized. But yes, I don't see any way for them to do what they're doing without purchasing Hulu in total.
Okay.
Well, Vash,
Thank you.
tell us where people can find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there.
The best place to find me is going to be at Twitter. So that's going to be at VashSky. That's right below my avatar there. If you could read that, at V as in Victor, ASHSKY. You can go ahead and type that into the Twitters, and it should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the, let's say, robust discussion right there. And if you want to see me, it is going to be on the Orange Grove 55 channel on YouTube, where I host a show on there, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Fantastic. And love the jingle. For those of you who love Disney parks, you'll be able to identify it pretty easily.
Oh, yes.
Well, folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about the notification bell. We covet your comments, so drop one down below. This is not a conversation between two people. This is a dialogue with all of you. Hop in there and share with us what you're thinking. I long for the days of Disney being what it once was. Hopefully it will return soon. Makes me happy to cover good things about the company. Lately, it has been a lot of lackluster, and hopefully that comes to an end. Whatever it takes, whether that is a leadership change or whether that is a complete tonal shift at this corporation, Mickey Mouse needs a makeover. Folks, one day that's going to happen. That's just the way the market works. I hope it's sooner rather than later. There you go. Well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and you bet, keep having fun.